Do companies brandwash us? In the following section, we're going to discover how these companies manage to brandwash us. In other words, how do brand marketers take advantage of consumers' psychological cues? Let's take a look at the first brandwashing strategy, fear-mongering marketing. In 2003, SARS emerged in Asia, but eventually infected citizens in roughly 40 countries, causing a global panic. People all over the world were putting a lot of efforts to protect themselves and their children from exposure. The outbreak of H1N1 influenza virus, better known as swine flu, first detected in Mexico in 2009, also caused a similar round of global panic. Mostly thanks to these two global health scares, today we've welcomed antibacterial hand sanitizers into our lives as an utterly essential staple. Containers of this soap and hand gel can now be found at virtually every airport, grocery store, bathroom, and in other public places. Many parents will not leave home without a small bottle or spritz canister in their purse or pocket. The fear of germs has driven the world into nothing short of an antibacterial mania. The advertisers and marketers can reshape our perception using all kinds of strategies. Purell, the top-selling hand sanitizer, capitalized on the global panic during the 2009 swine flu pandemic. They released an onslaught of new products that claimed, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, one of the ways you can help protect yourself from swine flu is by practicing good hand hygiene. They worked extremely hard to make us believe that using their product is the only surefire way to stave off grave and deadly disease, and it paid off. The sales of Purell have jumped by 50% since the 2009 panic. But it turns out that the use of antibacterial cleansing gels can prevent neither SARS nor swine flu. Both viruses are spread via tiny droplets in the air that are sneezed or coughed by people who are already infected. Other brands didn't fall far behind. Antiviral tissues, ionic air purifiers, and antibacterial face masks also took the opportunity to boost their sales. Why is fear-mongering marketing so effective? Infect it and start feeling similarly. It's because our brains are hardwired to fear from an evolutionary standpoint. In ancient times, when faced with a flood, dangerous beasts, or any insecurities from the external world, our ancestors would fear instinctively. Fear raises our adrenaline, creating that primal, physiological fight or flight response. Neuroscientists found out that there's a substantial overlap between those brain areas involved in processing fear and pleasure. That is to say, the activation and release of this alarm would also satisfy us. Compared with the cortex for rational analysis and logical thinking, the cortex for fear is older and more developed. That's why we're naturally easier to manipulate by using fear to make irrational decisions. According to some scientific studies, fear also has a particularly contagious feature. If you see a person who's worried about something, and more people seem to worry about the same thing, you will eventually get infected and start feeling similarly. Thanks to the effectiveness of fear marketing, some brands even give consumers an imaginary enemy, a glimpse of some future feared self. These brands prey on our fears with the illusion that our future self will be a middle-aged, paunchy, and balding man. Gyms and haircare products have prevailed for decades. Imagine this: what if the future feared self looks like a middle-aged woman with wrinkled skin and yellow teeth? What would we do then? Using these tactics, beauty and tooth cleaning products remain popular among consumers. Sometimes advertisers will combine these marketing strategies together to make their message more effective. For instance, they try to take advantage of our fear and guilt. No one is more vulnerable to anxiety and guilt than new mothers, among whom germophobia is the most common fear. They often fear that their surroundings are unsafe and unhygienic wherever they go. They're absolutely terrified of anything that could harm their newborns. Some anxious new mothers will even sterilize the floor and vacuum with the dust mite controller every day, as well as change the bed sheets every 2 days. They will purchase many other health and safety-related items, such as car seats, baby gates, child safety guards, safety bath time thermometers, digital video baby monitors, and more, just to create a clean and safe living environment for the baby. In reality, This stuff won't necessarily make the little ones any safer or healthier either. Japanese physicians found that babies' immune systems are actually weakening, an unfortunate consequence of their parents' preoccupation with germs. However, the existence of these products, in a way, provides emotional support to ease these new mothers through a period of anxiety. Some smart brands might even relieve our fear and uneasiness through creating an illusion to trick us, by drawing on the fear we have towards contamination. For example, hotels employ one of these tactics by placing a paper seal on the seats of their toilets, or a paper lid on the rim of the glasses. This creates the illusion of cleanliness, and tricks you into thinking no other person has ever used that toilet or drank out of that glass. In a closely related scheme, in many grocery stores, the narrow white strip attached to the lid of some jam or yogurt is telling us that the product is fresh and sealed. Even the smacking sound when we unscrew some jars and containers was created and patented. It conveys the impression that what's inside is fresh and clean. To sum it up, fear is human nature. Marketers are amazingly adept at identifying our weakness and knowing what we're afraid of. They release products aimed at solving consumers' problems as well as alleviating our fears. Next, we'll get to know the second psychological maneuver, nostalgia marketing. The older we get, the more intense our longing for the good old days becomes. Neurologists found that our brains are wired to keep and amplify our favorable past experiences. In contrast, the lousy experience is usually wiped out. With this information processing method, when we recall an experience, we have a far better and more pleasurable feeling than what we experienced at that moment. In other words, we tend to have a rosy retrospection of our past. People will cherish the memory of the peaceful past when faced with uncertainties of the future. This makes nostalgia marketing extremely effective when the market is low. Vintage is trending in the fashion clothing industry. People are reminiscing about the traditional food we had in our childhood. Of course, if they play up the past too much, we might begin to see the product or brand as dusty, outdated, or out of style. That's why a lot of brands and companies, like Whole Foods, have developed some incredibly innovative strategies for towing this delicate line. Whole Foods is America's largest high-end retailer of natural and organic goods, usually located in the Brownstone district. At first sight, you might not connect it with nostalgia because of the spacious and bright venue, advanced equipment, various categories, and high pricing. However, the store will evoke the consumer's feelings of homesickness. For example, the music playing faintly overhead is a dance hit that reminds you of the 1980s. In the store sits a dozen stacked cardboard boxes with fresh fruit packed inside. It could have been unpacked but was left that way on purpose. This rustic, innocent touch is a symbol to reinforce the idea of old-time simplicity, as if our mythical farmers ran out of cantaloupe crates and had to make do with used cartons. But wait, upon close inspection, you may find these boxes are manufactured to look like used boxes. Whole Foods' ongoing salute to the roadside stand of bygone days continues with a display of apples perched atop a wooden crate. The crate is deliberately distressed looking. There is a sign with sloppy handwriting nearby, making it look like a roadside fruit stand from when we were younger. The 2 bottles of organic apple juice perched behind the apples steer our brains to the old-fashioned notion of homemade cider. All of these marketing tricks are designed to recall a time when life was simpler, better, healthier, and more natural. Therefore, using these product and marketing strategies, Whole Foods successfully leads a modern yet nostalgic food trend. This is an example of the nostalgia marketing we were referring to. People tend to fantasize about our rosy past. So companies will manipulate these nostalgic emotions by intentionally illustrating a sweet dream of old times. Next, let's talk about the third psychosocial maneuver, sex in advertising. It is human nature to be lured by sex. Sexual attraction raises humans' desire to conquer. For instance, a lot of high-end car manufacturers design their cars with smooth lines and long curves, mixing masculinity and a feminine touch to represent a dynamic image. How does this make the male drivers feel? Of course, they feel as if they are riding and conquering a fast, beautiful and wild animal. The engineers at the auto company even imported these sensuous qualities into the car's steering wheel, gear stick, and door handles.